"I don't know how the muggle managed with magics," he said, as they climbed a broken-down escalator that led up to a bustling road lined with shops. Hagrid was too huge that he parted the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was keep close behind him. They passed bookshops and music stores, hamburgers restaurants, and cinemas, but nowhere that looked as if it could sell you magic wand. This was just ordinary streets full of ordinary people. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Were there really shops that sold spell books and broomsticks? Might this not all be the huge joke that the Dursleys had cooked up? If Harry hadn't known that the Dursleys had no sense of humor, he might have thought so. Yet somehow, even though everything Hagrid had thought to, even though everything Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him. "This is it," said Hagrid, coming to a halt. "The Leaky Cauldron is a famous place." It was a tiny, grubby-looking pub. If Hagrid hadn't pointed it out, Harry wouldn't have noticed it was there. The people hurrying by didn't glance at all. Their eyes slid from the big bookshop on one side to the record shop on the other, as if they couldn't see the Leaky Cauldron at all. In fact, Harry had the most peculiar feeling that only he and Hagrid could see it. Before he could mention on this, Hagrid had steered him inside. For a famous place, it was very dark and shabby. A few old women were sitting in a corner, drinking tiny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man in a top hat was talking to the old bartender, who was quite bald and looked like a toothless walnut. The low buzz of chatter stopped when they walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. They waved and smiled at him, and the bartender reached for a glass, saying, "The usual Hagrid? Can't Tom? I'm on Hogwarts business," said Hagrid, clapping his great hand on Harry's shoulder and making Harry's knees buckle. "Good Lord!" said the bartender, peering at Harry. Can this be? The Leaky Cauldron has suddenly gone completely still in silence. "Bless my soul," whispered the old bartender. "Harry Potter, what an honor!" He hurried out from behind the bar, rushed toward Harry, and seized his hand, tear in his eyes. "Welcome back, Miss Potter. Welcome back." Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realizing it had gone out. Harry was beaming. Then there was a great snapping cheers, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in Leaky Cauldron. "Doris Cockworth, Mr. Potter. Can't believe I'm meeting you at last. So proud, Mr. Potter. I'm so just proud. Always wanted to shake your hands. I'm all of flutter. Delighted, Mr. Potter. Just can't tell you Diggles the name. Dallas Diggles." "I've seen you before," said Harry, as Daedalus Diggle top hat fell off in his excitement. "You bowed to me once in the shop. He remembers, cried Diggle, looking around at everyone. Did you hear that? He remembers me. Harry shook hands again and again. Doris Cockford kept coming back for more. A pale young man made his way forward, very nervously. One of his eyes was twitching. Professor Quirrell, said Hagrid. Harry, Professor Quirrell will be the one who teaches at Hogwarts. Potter, smattered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand. I can't tell you. Please, I'm to meet you. What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell? Defense against the dark arts, muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he'd rather not think about it. Not that you need a Potter. He laughed nervously. You'll be getting all your equipments, I suppose. I've got to pick up new books on vampires myself. He looked terrified at the very thought. But the other won't let Professor Quirrell keep Harry to himself. It took almost 10 minutes to get away from them all. At last, Hagrid managed to make himself heard over the bubble. Must get on, lots to buy. Come on, Harry. Doris Cockford shook Harry's hand one last time, and Hagrid led them through the bar and out into a small walled country yard where there was nothing but a trash can and a few weeds. Harry grinned at Terry. Told ya, didn't I? Told you was famous. Even Professor Quirrell was trembling to meet ya. Mind you, usually trembling. Is he always that nervous? Oh yeah, poor bloke. Brilliant mind. He was fine while he was studying autumn books, but then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. They say he met vampires at Black Forest, and there was nasty bit of trouble with a hat. Never been the same since. Scared of the students, scared of his own subject. Now, where's me umbrella? Vampires, hags. Harry's head was swimming. Harry, meanwhile, was counting bricks in the wall above the trash can. 3 up, 2 across, he muttered. Right, stand back, Harry. He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of his umbrella. The brick he had touched quivered and wriggled. In the middle, a small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider. A second later, they were facing an archway large enough even for Hagrid. The archway onto a cobble street that twisted and turned outside. Welcome, said Hagrid, to Diagon Alley. He grinned at Harry's amazement. They stepped through the archway. Harry looked quite quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into solid wall. The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Cauldrons, outside, copper, brass, petrol, silver, self-stirring, collapsible, and a sign hanging over them. Yeah, you'll be needing one, said Harry, but we got to get your money first. Harry wished he had 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, the things outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside in ecstasy was shaking her head as they passed, saying, "Dragon liver! 16 sickles at ounce! They're mad!" A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying "Elves." Owl in a room, tawny, screech, burnt brown and snowy. Several boys of about Harry's age had their noses pressed against a window with broomsticks in it. "Look," Harry heard one of them say. "The new Nimbus 2000, fastest ever." There were shop ceilings, roof shops, ceilings, telescope, and strange silver instruments Harry had never seen before. Windows streaked with barrels of bad spillings and elf's eyes tottering, piles of spellbooks, quills, and roll of parchment, potion bottles, glove of the moon, Gringotts, said Hagrid. They had reached a snowy white building that towered over the other little shops. Standing beside its burnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet and gold, was, "Yeah, that's a goblin," said Hagrid quietly as they walked up to the white stone step toward him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He had a swarthy, clever face, a pointed beard, and Harry noticed very long fingers and feet. He bowed as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second pair of doors, silver this time, with words engraved upon them. "Enter, strangers, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take, but do not earn, must pay most dearly in that time. So if you seek beneath our floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have been warned. Beware of finding more than treasure there." "Like I said, you'd be mad to try on Robin," said Hagrid. A pair of goblin blood them through the silver door, and they were in a vast marble hall. About 100 more goblins were sitting on high stools behind a long counter, scribbled in large letters, weighing coins in brass scales, examining precious stone through eyeglasses. There were too many doors to count leading off this. Hagrid and Harry made for the counter. "Morning," "Morning," said Hagrid to a free goblin. "We've come to take some money out of Mr. Potter's safe. You have these keys, sir?" "Got it here somewhere," said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pocket onto the counter, scattering a handful of moldy dough biscuits on the goblin's books of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin on their right, weighing a pile of rubies as big as glowing coals.